Upsetting. Controversial pastor Penuel Mnguni is at it again. This time, the so-called snake pastor and leader of the End Times Disciples Ministries has been filmed giving his congregants what he claims to be dog meat and blood. Mnguni is still preaching, despite efforts by the CRL Rights Commission to regulate churches. Well, to discuss this, we're joined in studio this morning by Archbishop Patrick Shorley, President and President of the South African Union Council of Independent Churches. And joining us from Cape Town is Advocate, that's Nadine Badenhorst. She's in our Cape Town studio for us this morning. And a very good morning to you both, Arch and Nadine. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, you've seen the details of this latest sermon by Penuel Mnguni, offering congregants what he says is dog meat and blood, and saying that he can heal HIV and cancer. Arch, I'd like just your response, your reaction to what you saw and heard there.
Yes. Well, according to our understanding, there is not such. It's because of lack of knowledge. There is no way that the HIV or whatever cancer can be healed by the bones of the dogs or what the blood of.
Yeah, I mean that we know. I mean that is something I think that those in understanding and know. But the fact that a man who claims to be a pastor, preaches as a pastor, can actually do this to congregants. I'd just like your thoughts on that. That is allowed to happen.
Well, since also the church is not regulated, I believe that some cult, they are using their ways to promote their interest in the name of church. Even in the Sangomas, they might not take the chance. It's not really a church.
Nadine, I'd like your thoughts just on this latest story involving the controversial Penuel Mnguni.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So I think it's firstly important to explain that Freedom of Religion South Africa, 4SA, we're a legal advocacy organisation, so we look at things from a legal point of view rather than from a particular religious point of view. Now, rightly said, a large number of churches and religious organisations have already condemned and spoken out against practices such as these that they do not believe to be biblical teaching, that do not reflect the Jesus of the Bible, who would never harm people's health or who always gave dignity to people. However, from our perspective, it's important to look at what the law says and what the courts have already found. Now, let's quickly look at that. The starting point really is Section 15 of the Constitution, which says that everybody has the right to freedom of religion, to freedom of conscience, religion and belief. And what our Constitutional Court has already said is that that means the freedom to internally believe, but also the freedom to say what it is we believe and the freedom ultimately to live out what we believe. Now, very importantly, in the court case of Prince, the Constitutional Court has already said that freedom of religion actually extends to beliefs and practices that are bizarre, illogical, or irrational. So even though we may feel a sense, and perhaps rightly so, of outrage regarding some of these things that are happening, as long as it's not harmful, there really isn't a place for the state or the courts to intervene. And clearly where it is harmful, there the courts must intervene, as we've seen happening in the case of the so-called prophet of doom, who sprayed people in the face with a bottle of doom, claiming that he'll heal them of all kinds of sickness and diseases. Now, in that case, he was criminally charged, he was found guilty, and he was actually sentenced, and rightly so. So I want to make it very clear that the right to freedom of religion... Yes?
In this case, I mean, would this not be something that could be deemed harmful? Because, I mean, are we not bordering on possible human rights abuses here? Because we're looking at we're looking at desperate congregants, those who want to be healed of certain illnesses. We're looking at somebody who's gone, I mean, we don't know what type of meat. He says it's dog meat. He says it's blood that he's giving them. He says he can heal HIV and cancer. And then you might have somebody who thinks, yes, I don't have HIV. I don't have cancer anymore. I can stop taking my cancer medication. I can go around and, you know, and go about my business thinking that I'm HIV free. Is that not bordering on danger? Is that not bordering on life threatening?
Clearly where it is bordering on danger or harm, there the state has a responsibility ultimately to lay a charge, a criminal charge with the police, and ultimately that case will need to be tested in court. Was it harmful? Wasn't it? As is the case with the prophet of doom. But where it falls outside the realm of where it's eating of grass, or it's eating of flowers that they claim will turn to chocolate in people's mouths, where there's no risk of harm or danger. Those practices may be strange, they may be bizarre, we may not like it, we may not agree with it, we even may find it offensive. That clearly is not a place for the courts or the states to intervene. That's freedom of religion. But where there is the danger of harm, or where, as in the case of Pastor Timothy Omatoso, who is currently on trial in the PE courts, and there are serious allegations of human trafficking or rape that is on trial for. Now, clearly, that is a place where the state and the courts must intervene. Freedom of religion can never be a shield for any criminal or otherwise illegal or harmful activity.
Well, I'd like to get the Archbishop's take on that, and Nadine has mentioned there Timothy Omatoso as well, Archbishop. I mean, we're looking here in both of these cases, alleged abuse of power as somebody that congregants look up to, somebody that you trust, and in both these cases, it seems like there's a apparent abuse of power of that position.
I agree with you. It's abuse of power. Hence, we propose self-regulation. We are busy now. We had a meeting some few weeks ago at Randburg Rema Church, where the CRL have handed over the report of code of conduct. And then Pastor Ray McCauley has been appointed as a convener to organize churches to come together for peer review so that they can have a task team, and that the task team can prepare a policy to send it to Parliament so that the Parliament can pass a bill where it can have a self-regulation for a church.
Would that extend to gatherings like this, though, the likes of what Penuel Mnguni does?
That's right, because people like Penuel Mnguni, they are not protected by any regulations. They can do whatever they can do. You have been seeing that the past, they've been giving a grass and a petrol, and then some they were using a dome. Like in case of these animals, because they are protected under, the only one thing that we can do, we can use the Animal Protection Act under 1976 for promotion, for further investigation. That's only what we can do. We can go to the police station and then they charge. Well, and they can be arrested of that one. Except that there is nothing the church can do, because even the federation, they've got less teeth to discipline those members. But once we are self-regulated, we can be able to take the license. We can be able to close the churches.
Well, I want to get a last word from Nadine. Nadine, what needs to happen here then for in the case? And I mean, the Timothy Omatoso case, yes, that's in court already. That is being dealt with at the moment. But when it comes to Penuel Mnguni, what needs to be done? Who can do what here to stop this man doing the things he's doing?
Well, it's very important, as I say, that where things are happening that are potentially harmful or otherwise criminal, that the state, and particularly a body like the CRL Rights Commission, who is a state institution that has specifically been put in place by the Constitution to protect people's, religious rights, but also look at instances where there are problems arising within the church, that they report it to the police, and that the police then investigate, and that things run its course. It's also possible, of course, for a complaint to be laid by any person, whether it's another church, whether it's a congregant itself, whether it's the CRL Rights Commission, any person of the public really, with potentially the Human Rights Commission, who also has extensive powers to investigate and even potentially take cases further to court. And when I say we, it's 4SA, and it also, the large majority of churches in South Africa actually are not in support of state regulation of religion. The matter is also already served before Parliament, before the COGTA Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, who's brought out a report and said that they would not be in favour of state regulation of religion, which they believe to be an infringement of the right to religion and actually unconstitutional, and that rather the better route is for regulation, for the church to find solutions by the church for the church, and that may include some kind of code of conduct, which is currently in process, where the church can hold each other to account. But more than that, where there are instances such as people being driven over by cars or things being perpetrated that could potentially result in grievous bodily harm or assault, clearly that is an instance where there are laws in place, and what is necessary is for the state to implement those laws. We rather need state enforcement than more laws, because really the question is ultimately, will regulation stop these things?
Yeah, because we do know
and
what's
I
right.
doubt it will.
We
so
do know what's
perhaps
right and wrong.
we need to rather look at enforcing the laws.
Thanks very much there, Archbishop Patrick Shole, President of the South African Union of Council of Independent Churches, and in Cape Town, the Advocate Nadine Badenhorst from Freedom for Religion SA.